What is going on, my friends? I hope you are doing well today. The team at TRE wants to say thank you so much for all the support. Thank you for joining today. This is the Real Estate Podcast, and we want you guys to do us a solid. If you don't mind, can you help us get the message out? We believe that real estate can be for anybody, and we believe there's opportunities for people to grow with us. So if you can, please share, subscribe, like, comment. Thank you for being here on our journey, and we are going to continue to add as much value as we possibly can and try to shake up the industry. Let's dive in.
I feel like I know why 80% of you got into this game, and it was really about creating more freedom, even though now you're working on the weekends. And part of that is starting to change your perspective of wanting to have your own wealth. You know, how do you build that wealth? I think as the market is reframing right now, this is like a ginormous opportunity for creative finance.
All right, we are live. Ingryd Hernandez, welcome to the Real Estate Podcast.
Hey,
Thank you for coming
how's it
on.
going? Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm excited to get to know you. We try to really just get people's message out and share the entrepreneurial journey and people's stories. And I think it's great that you're in Chandler, Arizona. I don't know much about Chandler, to be honest, but what I have heard, and I do believe to be true, is that I'm not sure why, maybe you know this, but a lot of the entrepreneurial spirit of real estate seems to come out of Arizona. And I think it also does in Texas in some sense, but for some reason, something unique seems to be going on in that market. I don't know what it is, but we'd love to get to know you, talk, what you got going on, provide value to people. And if you don't mind, maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself and we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I can only say that we have really landlord friendly laws here. So I think that just brews up the real estate entrepreneurial spirit, I guess. But no, very interesting you said that, because part of my journey was figuring out finding a mentor. And the two folks that I was considering were both out of Arizona, and that wasn't intentional at all. I was just YouTube university searching when I became interested in investing. So yeah, I live in Chandler, Arizona. It's a suburb of Phoenix. It's very big. And I've lived here since 2010 in Arizona. I'm originally from South America. I'm Colombian. I speak Spanish.
Cool.
So yeah, my stepfather was in the military, so I'm an Air Force brat, and we lived in Italy for a couple of years before we settled here in Arizona. And I moved all the time, which I didn't know at the time. It made me uniquely qualified to be a real estate investor and an agent. But I didn't get my license till 2013 as an agent. Okay. One thing I would love to have more of an open forum around is real estate agents, in my opinion, oftentimes get into that career with the intentions of being an investor and creating wealth. And then they get stuck in that self-employed box. I don't know if I haven't read it, but I know he has the 4 quadrants, Robert Kiyosaki. Yep. Where you have business owner and then truly the investor. Yep. And I feel like real estate agents get stuck in that self-employed box, which is one box removed from being like a W-2 worker, somebody who has a job. So yeah,
I don't know how much you know about us, but it's funny that you say that, because like our whole passion and vision here is literally geared towards focusing what you're talking about. Yeah. So we've got about 160 agents, and we're very entrepreneurial, and we say, hey, have your license be a tool, but come be a real estate professional and come here to get more out of real estate for yourself. And we're like all in on that. We're all about the entrepreneurial spirit. And one thing that someone brought to my attention is like, when you get your license, it's like, welcome to small business ownership. And people don't always realize that is like, there's a lot of components involved. But then look at having your license as a tool. And when you go meet with a seller or a buyer to be able to adapt, and maybe you buy from them or you wholesale or you buy with them or whatever it may be. And so like we've gone all in on that as a brokerage to really be that place where you can come to do that. And most brokerages, as you maybe know, don't support that or encourage it. And it's really just from me like wanting that and kind of knocking my head against the wall at different brokerages and them saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. And so, yeah, it's cool that you say that, because that's literally like my whole vision and passion with things is like, let's be that place to cater to that person.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So when I got my license back in 2013, that was my intention. I was working a W-2 job, and my goal was grow this agent business with the intention of eventually getting into like fix and flipping and things like that. You know, we're all influenced by HGTV and, you know, how Joanna Gaines and forgot her husband's name, Chip. Yeah. And it didn't work out that way, but I was growing my real estate agent influence. Like seriously, as a part-time person, I was making 60 to 70 grand on the side. And there came a point where I was like, okay, I either have to quit my W-2 or my husband's going to have to quit his W-2. So in 2017, he quit his W-2 because I kept getting promoted. And it just made sense for me to stay in a W-2. And in all transparency, I still have a W-2. I have a goal to quit that job, but the mentorship I'm in, which is sub 2, they've really helped me consider, what does leverage look like? And leverage does not necessarily mean, you know, a debt in terms of like capital. But it's also who has the complementary skill and or time so that you can leverage them. Sure, you're not going to get the bigger piece of the pie, let's say in a fix and flip situation, but you're still getting a piece of it. Yeah. So we really got cracking back, you know, it's almost been a year since I got my first, like I'll call it, true investor deal on the acquisition side, you know, under contract. And that very first deal, which was a virtual flip, netted us $54,000 this past February. So got it under contract last September, gave them a 30-day post-possession. So we closed October, didn't get the house till November, fixed it up, sold it, and then we cleared it all by February. So that was the very first one. Thank you.
That's awesome.
And then just became kind of a momentum builder. My husband got a wholesale assignment of $26,000 a month later. You know, next month we actually bought a sub 2 deal in Houston. So it's a property that we Airbnb. And so every month we're looking to close a deal or two. And then, you know, we've been in a really good cadence so far and just continuing to build that momentum.
That's good. That's beautiful. And is there a component that do you use your license as an agent or?
I do. Okay. So we're closing a deal this week, agreement for sale. VA loans are quickly becoming my favorite, by the way. If somebody has a VA loan and they're in a situation, as you may know, with FHA or VA loans, you're buying into a mortgage that has little to no equity. So if that soldier, if they're active, or if that person comes into a situation where they have to move, you know, or they have to make a next step like that, they're really at a loss, where a short sale seems to be the only next, you know, step or recourse. When somebody like me, I can potentially provide them a second option, which is, let me take over your mortgage. I could put money in your pocket, and we'll put, you know, certain instruments in place so that the seller feels secure that I'll make sure they're well taken care of and I'm not hurting their credit. And if I do, there's certain things called like a performance deed. I don't remember what it's called. I think it's called a deed in lieu in Florida, where if I don't say what I'm going to say, then they get the house back. So in those situations, those are my favorite in terms of being able to help someone because they feel like they're going to lose no matter what, and I can help them win.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What was it that, so you kind of got in a flow, which is great. I'm excited for you. Do you remember, like, trying to think back as far as adding value to entrepreneurs? There was like this point, where a lot of people are, they want to do it, but they're not sure how, and they're scared, and they don't get it. And then all of a sudden it kind of clicks. Did you have that experience?
Yes. But the clicking part was more about focusing on the serving. So
That's great.
rather than think inward, I had a seller that needed my help. So the very first deal that we got under contract was that virtual flip in Las Vegas that I was talking about. He had lost his employment. He didn't even have a way to buy groceries and said, hey, by next week, I'm not going to be able to talk to you because they're cutting my cell phone service off. And I was like, oh, damn, we need to do something about that. So I paid for him to have groceries and I paid his cell phone. And to be transparent, part of it was selfish, right? Like, hey, if we're going to do a deal together, I have to be able to get a hold of you and I have to make sure like you.
Hey, it's a win-win.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so I made sure he had groceries and I knew it was money I may never see again. Mm-hmm. And that was okay. Cause at the end of the day, I'm like, God will help me get through this. And not that I'm super religious. I'm not.
Hey, that's great. I'm a believer.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. But I was raised Catholic and then kind of moved away from it. And it's been really interesting to step into more of an entrepreneur platform and feeling like I'm actually headed back to be closer to God. Cause it's not, had a lot of trauma in my younger days. And so it made it difficult to have a relationship with God, but really doing this work and feeling like I have a higher purpose, like has helped me, help me with that. It's been weird.
Yeah, super cool. And I can understand why if you said you had some trauma, why you say like not religious, because it can just come off so wrong in a lot of ways and not what it really is in my opinion. Right. And so
yeah,
I think, we're speaking the same language. Like, I'm like, oh, you should join our brokerage. But like, when you say serve and add value, like that's a godly thing and things tend to work out way better, in your own benefit, but also it's just a better way to live life. And then you stop having so much anxiety of like trying to force things into happening. And, like this is, I believe like I'm meant to be here talking to you right now. And it's pretty cool. Like you can do amazing things when you're really believing in something that's bigger than you. And things just tend to work out better when you lead with value and you seek to help people. And that's what can be really cool about real estate. And what we do is we get to talk to people all the time. And one thing that I've been talking about lately is like, you have these crazy experiences and they almost just become like, that's normal. But when you step back, you're like, that's cool. Like paying for someone's grocery and phone bill, like that's not normal, but it's almost like that's a normal thing to understand and think of in real estate. Right. Like, it's not like everyone's done that. I don't know anyone who's probably ever done that, but it's just a different world that we get to live in and operate in and grow with people. And it's a blessing. And I thank God every day for that.
Yeah. I just think of myself sometimes as like, like Mario Brothers. I don't know if you grew up playing Mario Brothers like I did. And it's just like
Mario Kart.
Well, not kart, I'm older than you probably, but the original Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, totally.
Where it's just an obstacle and you have to figure out, how do you go around it? How do you, try to stay away from the fire? Yeah. Get to the flagpole. And so it's been fun to be on this side of things and think about, I have a problem. How do I solve it? Versus I have a problem. How do I complain about it? Yeah. I constantly tell my husband now solutions only because it really helps.
Solutions. Yeah, dude, you're speaking my language. Yeah. I love it. And my buddy, one of my good friends, He's a Navy SEAL. And I was talking to him today and he's like, you know what we do? We solve problems. Like we figure out a problem and we figure out a solution, no matter what it is, we go make that solution happen.
Yeah.
And along the way, if we need to course correct or adjust, if we get some new information or see something new, we go a new direction. But like, that's like the Navy SEAL mentality. So it's like, solving problems. And I think I got it from my dad, but there's no such things as problems, only solutions.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's just like, how do you create that Mario pattern, right? So that you can get around whatever obstacle you're up against. But one of the reasons I was extremely attracted to create a financing is because it takes it up a notch. Being an agent with a license and then understanding wholesaling, those like two tools, but creative finance, like it grows it exponentially because now you're figuring out, actually I have a property that we're selling in Round Rock. I do believe we're using one of your agents out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Out in, I think the neighborhood's called Cat's Hollow.
Yeah. I grew up in Cat Hollow.
Okay. Well, why don't you buy my house? We'll discount it for you.
Was it Amanda that you were working with?
Yeah. Amanda. Yeah.
Love it. That's awesome.
So it's a 5-bedroom property and it's really nice. We really only had to finish what the seller started but couldn't finish himself. And that has taught me a lot. We're supposed to close with him, the acquisition side, tomorrow at the latest. And it's been a tough one. I can't deny.
Sure. It always is.
They're not always this tough. I would argue that this one's been a little bit personality types and folks involved has made it difficult. And Amanda can probably attest to this. But the seller has been contentious. And so what we were going to do with this deal is do what's called a novation. Yep. And the novation, I didn't know this, but I was told like, well, if you're ever going to actually touch the property, like do significant rehab, you shouldn't do a novation. You should likely do what's called a subtail or sub to it and then sell it on retail. So we did the novation. The seller kind of went a little crazy on us. Luckily, we had an amazing attorney out in Texas who just knows how to problem solve with the best of them. His name is Scott Horn from Horn and Associates. And he found a way to help us grow the margin we had and leverage that to negotiate the sub 2 piece of that with the seller. So I know I'm using big terminology right now. I just want to make sure that I don't expose too much of, because we haven't completely closed on this deal, but ultimately the solution was, hey, seller, we're going to be able to give you more money. So if we can give you more money, will you let us control the deed? Like the deed's going to go into our company's name. If we just buy you out up front and we promise that we're going to pay the mortgage on a monthly basis on your behalf. And once the seller heard that he could make more money, he's like, absolutely. Where do I sign? Yeah. So, so the reason we went and made this approach and just created a hard money situation in a second position, basically, to be able to take care of the seller up front, is just so that we can have less of a hassle as we try to sell the property on MLS now and not have the seller be involved. Yeah. So, I mean, under normal novation circumstances, you don't control the deed. Sure. It's a high trust situation with the seller, of which we did not have. So we had to pivot.
So talk to me about, if you don't mind, I believe, if I know the story correct, that Amanda got plugged in with you through Seeking to Serve and Add Value. Is that correct?
I would. Well, I don't really know how Amanda. So I have a partner. His name is Curtis Harris. Like, he is my guy down in Round Rock and Austin area. And so if there's any potential deals, like, he's the one I'm partnering up with. Yeah. Yep. And so Curtis brought Amanda. I don't really know how they
Somehow, I think it
connected.
was for sale by owner or something, and she reached out and
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah.
So part of our approach was like, hey, let's put a sign up while we're finishing construction and see if we can get any potential buyers interested.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
So she reached out, stayed in touch, and somehow now she's working with y'all, which is cool.
yeah, for sure.
How do you
Um,
find a deal? You're doing this from Chandler, Arizona. How do you find a deal in Round Rock, Texas?
well, I'm part of this amazing community called Sub2. It's SUB as in boy, TO. And Sub2 is just how we think creatively, subject to existing mortgages or existing liens, and making the structure of that of those requirements work. So part of what I've done in that community is led. Like, if you need help underwriting, I'll help you. If you need help comping, I'll help you. And if I can't help you, I'll find somebody who can help you. And so I get leads almost every single day because folks need my help because they're newer to real estate. Maybe it's a complicated situation. I'll give you an example. I bought a property that was on market, and it's what we call a Morby method. So our mentor's name is Pace Morby.
Yep.
Are you maybe familiar with him?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So sorry, I don't know how to make this. Forgive me. So somebody called me and said, hey, the seller needs your help. They need to stay in the property. They don't want to sell the property, but they have a judgment and the court is mandating that they sell their house. And it was a free and clear property. And I was like, okay. So the only target market that could help them was an investor. And I was like, how can we work this out? So I paid more than what they were asking for. The overage of what they were asking for paid for the wholesaler, partly paid for the commissions with the agent, which included my husband. And then after the sellers sold their house to me, they seller finance back the down payment and they lease option the property. So for the next 3 years, they have first right of refusal to buy the house back at a price that we've already predetermined. And then the seller finance portion that they gave back to me will discount their total price. Mm-hmm. So at the end of that day, we'll make over 100 grand on that house. Am I cash flowing on it? I should have been, but the market changed in May, the May timeframe where rates started going up. Right. And so what should have been like a 5.25 rate should have been, or became 6. And if it wasn't for me having met the family, putting an agreement together and saying, I'm here to help you, I probably would have quit because that was ridiculously difficult to close using more traditional lending tools. So yeah.
Always something, right?
Always something.
Totally. Well, that's cool. I mean, you're just getting in it, you're learning, you're figuring it out, you're creating solutions. What I think would be cool to figure out how to kind of relay this to other people, because a lot of people, don't take that leap. And we try hard to say, you got to have no fear. You got people here that will support you, but it's still hard. And so like trying to think through, what is it? What's that moment that we can help it click for people, that they took that first step and you realize like, hey, you're doing this deal in Round Rock, and some people would just give up. But it's like, no, just keep going. It's part of the deal. Maybe it's half education, half risk tolerance, half like, I got no other option. But like, that's what I want to get out to people, because I believe that there's opportunities for everybody in real estate. But there's people that, don't take this leap to where what you've done, and you're living it and you're doing it. And I don't know. I always just constantly think like, how do we get people to that point where like at this point for you, I'm sure you, even though you have like some challenges here and there, like you realize you can do whatever you want. It's just a matter of, how much time do you want to put into it? Because it's already clicked. It's all possible. Yeah.
The proof of concept definitely has, evolved with me. I would say for those people who are just, too scared is to team up. So in our community, we call squad up. So come to somebody who's more experienced like myself. I always say if they don't have the HUDs, they're duds. So, make sure that you are working with somebody who's a proven closer or who's actually taking it to the bank, as they say. So that's how I serve. Like, if you're too scared, well, come to me, let's figure it out together so that you feel confident in making that offer, in taking that leap on fix and flipping. Curtis, for example, my partner in Round Rock, he really needed the proof of concept that he did not need to use his own money. And so my contribution to the property in Round Rock was, hey, I'll have the money. I know how to underwrite it and structure. You take care of the contractor and make sure that the house gets finished up. And so by us, upfront saying, here's our contribution to the deal, we were able to figure out, okay, this is really a 50-50 situation. I had a deal where I had a fella who barely spoke English. I gave him a list of pre-foreclosures and said, hey, call on them. And of course, he's frightened to be on the phone because his English isn't very good. And he's like, I got one. Literally 4 days later, calls me. He's like, I have one. I have somebody who wants, who I think we can send an offer to. And I was like, cool, send them. And so I called her while I was on the phone with her, because I don't know much about land or failed developments. This was a failed development situation, which I thought was just a land deal. And I was totally wrong. I text my guy who he's a land expert. And I was like, hey, she wants 1.3 million. Does this pencil? He's like, absolutely, lock it up. So I did, got her under contract. And at the end of the day, that was a $250,000 assignment. That guy who hardly speaks English and has all the excuses in the world, we got him 50,000. So his part of the piece of the 250 was 20. And then myself and my land guy, his name is Anthony Pappas, we split the 40, right? The 80% that was left over.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's amazing. That's amazing. So
I mean, that was life-changing money for him. So
absolutely. You've done a good job. You're telling people stuff that you take to use yourself. Applying, you found the partner there.
100%. Like that's how I'm able to do this and still hold down a job. Like, do I plan on having that job forever? No, but I'm a gal of integrity. I was recruited to this job that I hold right now. And I promised I was going to help them deliver a certain type of technical project. And that after that's been executed, then I'll feel better about exiting, which is really right around the corner, the next month or two. So right. Yeah. Yeah. And I can't sit here and say I'm not scared. I'm definitely scared. I mean, think about everything that's been on the news. Recession, prices have been softening. My husband and I were just talking about our goals and like, what could we live with, and one new activity we started doing with our children is like every other week, we review all the charges we have against our credit card, because everything we buy is against our credit card. And we bucket into a want or a need. And it's not necessarily for us to budget, but to have more awareness, because I let them know once mom quits her job, we need the want bucket to be less than the need bucket. And the want bucket right now is overflowing. It's like way more than the need. And so it's a good visual indicator for them to be like, okay. What's funny is that now they're super judgy. So every time we write that down, like, ooh, daddy, you got more Starbucks. Like, so it's revealed some things. So
I love it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I'm really inspired by you just taking the journey and about to quit the job and go all in. It's going to be exciting to see your journey.
Yeah.
What would be, I guess, parting advice for people, or also anything else that you'd like to talk about, or things that you need that we could add value for?
Well, again, I would love an opportunity to talk to more agents to let them know. I feel like I know why 80% of you got into this game. And it was really about creating more freedom, even though now you're working on the weekends. And part of that is starting to change your perspective of wanting to have your own wealth. How do you build that wealth? I think as the market is reframing right now, this is like a ginormous opportunity for creative finance. And if you don't know anything about creative finance, I encourage you to go onto YouTube University is what I call it. And check out Pace Morby, for example. That's how I started. I was a Bigger Pockets fan, and I was like, I don't have money to do this. There has to be another way. And so in searching YouTube is how I found Pace. And then I was like, wait a second, I don't need any of my money. So after navigating that, I realized that my license is my tool to get into the door with many of these sellers. And then I asked them to look at me first as an investor. If my investment offer doesn't do it for them, then we can always list. So that's the way I bring it up. The property we're about to buy in the city of Surprise, under an agreement for sale this week, they would have walked away anywhere between $35,000 and $55,000. I was able to offer them $120,000. It's what I call marathon money. Sprint money, meaning fast. This is how much money we're going to get you in the next 2 or 3 months. Or if you can wait 5 years, here's how much more money I can get you. And it aligned with their goals. They don't want to buy a house anytime soon, not for another 5 or 7 years once the husband is out of the service. And so I say that, or I illustrate that because I was there for a listing appointment. And so now as an agent, I can think about how can I serve my sellers even better? Because in my opinion, I think that's complete fiduciary to say, how do I get them the most? And by me being an investor, that's how I was able to do it. I was able to get them the most, and it lined up with their goals.
Love it. Win-win, and just using it as a tool. You're on it. You get it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. What would be ways that people could get a hold of you?
So on Instagram is probably the best bet, and to DM me on there. So my name is spelled a little different. So it's Ingryd_Hernandez. Just message me on there. That's the best way to get me, even though I'm also on Facebook. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, Ingrid, appreciate your time. Everyone who's listening, a lot of good advice here and ways to utilize this and to serve and to do good things, and appreciate it so much. So guys, reach out anytime. The Real Estate Podcast, we're out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.